Alright, we are recording for Chapter 4 of Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. There, so I can see the video if need be. So this is the chapter with the assassination, and I don't know, as I think about it, I still think that I'm just, overall comparing the book still to what I've read before. I'd still say that the, Wrath of Khan and Search for Spock... How would I compare this against Search for Spock? Writing style, I would still give Vonda McIntyre that she's better. But this is still going very well. If this maintains where it is now, and now I know it's chapter 4 and of what, 13 is it? Yeah, 13 plus an epilogue there. If it maintains it, this will probably be a 3. It's definitely interesting. So it starts with Ezet Burr, who is a little drunk, tried to lie down, but something is troubling her, and so she decides to go see her father. Her fingers hovered above the buzzer. She did not know why she had come here, except to verify with her own eyes that her father still lived. The nights before they set sail for Earth, The nights before they set sail for Earth had been plagued by troubling dreams of his death. Now influenced by the ale, she was running to her father like a nightmare-frightened child. So she's been having premonitions, essentially. And also, I do want to mention, she is not just his daughter, she is also a member of the High Council. So this is important. In fact, even when she comes in, he asks, have you come as a council member or as a daughter? But yeah, I do feel that is important because both her position relative to the others, but also his naming her as his successor, it is more appropriate. So, for your safety, I did not realize the depth of... Well, she's concerned. He's like, looking at her like, go on. He's like, full attention on you. For your safety, I did not realize the depth of hatred that awaits us on Earth until we went aboard the Enterprise. He sighed. It startled me as well. Not that it existed, certainly. The fact that our peoples have cause to despise each other has been no secret for the past 70 years. But that it was so overt. I suspect Kudau has brought it to the surface. Kirk, as it Burrs said, with a sudden heat, Kirk hates us. I do not trust him, father. Don't go aboard his ship again. He tilted his broad, whiskered face quizzically. Kirk is not dangerous, Zeta. His hatred is an honest one. His son was killed by Captain Krug. But I suspect he has the intelligence. If his son was killed, she countered, with a vehemence that surprised them both, then why should he not seek revenge? He is not a Klingon warrior. He is not sworn to blood revenge. So, that, and there's a little bit later on as well, that does indicate that my read for the character of Gorkon, and how I talked about it before, that he would recognize that, yeah, this was going to happen. This kind of stuff happens amongst the Klingons as well, just not necessarily in front of the humans. That it's like, this is not necessarily a bad situation. It's not good, but it's like this is not as bad as it could be. And also, he does the whole thing with Kirk. It does get brought up later as well. Well, in Gorkon's mind, that basically, no, he knows he can trust Kirk. He knows that Kirk may not understand killing the way a Klingon does, but he does have a warrior's honor. So it's like, yeah, he's fine. There's the hatred there, but I got it. I understand it. That's not. So let me just check. Okay. So he also starts telling her that, if I die, you must succeed me. You will not die. Listen to me. The uncharacteristic anger in his tone startled her into silence. He began again, quietly, calmly. I've been lucky, Zeta, that the warriors have permitted me to come this far, that I have managed to avoid assassination long enough to get the entire High Council to agree on the necessity of a peace treaty is nothing short of a miracle. Surely you have always realized that. Our security measures are nothing short of drastic. But now we must fear not only those within our own empire, we must fear factions within the Federation and Romulan governments as well. He smiled faintly. My child, indulge me. Does it not make sense to plan for the future? How would you rather we leave or would you rather leave the Empire in the hands of the military to do with as they will? She is very uncomfortable, does not want to accept not necessarily his mortality, but that he could be just murdered. That he could be killed. That she doesn't really want to accept, which, yeah. But I do appreciate that we must fear factions within the Federation and Romulan governments as well. So this is suggesting, and there are some things later on, that he is aware of the conspiracy theory, at least the edges of it. He has his suspicions about who's involved, but it's still, he doesn't quite know fully. And the funny thing is, I could see Gorkon being smart enough, especially because of his connections with Spock at this point, that if he did know who the assassins were, who the conspirators were, that he actually would wait and try to help, work with Spock to have them all rounded up as sort of a peace offering, even, that on both sides, the Klingons, the Romulans, and the Federation members that are in the conspiracy, I could see Gorkon, if he had that knowledge, he would exploit it in that way and just turn them all over so that it would just be international law that they all take part in. So it's not just Federation law, but international law, interstellar law. So it's not just Federation, but have Gorkon even take part in the trial to give it greater legitimacy and to show the two governments working together. I could see that being his calculation. Obviously, that's not going to happen. He is seriously wounded by the end of this. It will be in the next chapter, I assume, that he actually dies. Although, well, okay. The thing is back. That, what was it? With the whole, I'm just trying to remember what book was it in? Was it in Final Frontier, or was it in Voyage Home, where the whole thing about, then his eyes saw no more, that I despise? Which one was that? I don't remember now. But it's just, I hate that, and we do kind of have that here as well, where he succumbs to the darkness, but it's like, okay, when in the movie they get to him, he is unconscious, and it's like they do stir him awake and such, so it's like, okay, no, that's still possibly fine, and just succumbing to the darkness doesn't have to mean that they're dead. It can mean that, but it doesn't have to, so. But it is, at least with this, it's well, yeah, I know he just took what will prove a fatal wound. Anyhow. So coming back to in the moment here, he has also explained to his daughter that he has spoken with all the members of the High Council, except for her, because he intends to name her as his successor, which that is Klingon. It is Klingon law. It is warrior tradition. It's always a man that is the High Chancellor. But it is Klingon law that he can name them, that he can name his successor. And he has spoken with all the others to basically ensure he's naming her, they will support her. She actually brings up, what about Brigadier Curler, as somebody that he can also trust? Curler is too hot-blooded, too easily swayed. He's a warrior at heart. Even now I do not know where his loyalties lie, she does. And Chang is too shrewd to trust. He shook his head. No, daughter, you are the only one. And we get a little bit more talk about Chang a little later. Yeah, she has strong reason to believe what Curler's interests are, because it is where his loyalties lie. Because they are lovers, apparently, or at least they are in love. And he desperately wants the oath, them to take their oaths, but haven't done that yet. And we get that scene a little later, but it is interesting. And I honestly, I like that, because even though knowing them not so well from the book yet, but from the movie, it's like, I mean, it makes sense for how close those two are. like he is constantly near her, including after she ascends to being a High Chancellor, and he does seem like he is a good man, and so it's like that works for me. I'm good with that. I'm good with that. Um, okay, now we get this. So we cut to Kirk, who has made it into his quarters, and we have the whole thing, him speaking to the captain's log. Commands were not exactly Emily Post. Note to the galley, Romulan ale no longer to be served at diplomatic functions. So this is where we are in the movie. And actually, it's a little bit more to the log before he's called up. But there's this highlight first. In one way, he felt embarrassed that he and his senior bridge crew had behaved as they did in front of the Klingons. In another, more philosophical way, he was glad it had happened. It would not make negotiations any easier, but a clearing of the air was necessary to the process. And if Gorkon was truly the shrewd, wise statesman Kirk perceived him to be, he would not allow the evening's unpleasantries to interfere with his goal. So, I'm not sure what the name for this would be. I'm sure there's a term for it. But Kirk's summation, what he's surmising for Gorkon's thoughts, I think we can't take as accurate as no. What he's saying, even though we're not having somebody closer to Gorkon, or even just having the narrator describe Gorkon, so it's more objective. I do think we can accept this as true, and also what Gorkon says or thinks about Kirk later on. In basically, he might not understand killing, but he does have a warrior's honor. I think that, too, we can accept as this is true of Kirk. Of course, we've always known that because we've got all the other stories and such that have shown that for him. But it's still important to know that for this book, because characters can change from one book to another, or one movie to another, one TV show to another, and so on. Anyway, so after that, he continues with the log a little bit, but it wasn't the ale. That was just the excuse we needed to say all the things that were really on our minds. Which is interesting. I feel like I'm overusing that. But it is as he said, it was a clearing of the air that had to happen. And the ale provided the catalyst there. That's a useful thing, and it is something that Gorkon would also appreciate. It isn't stated so clearly that he didn't start laughing. Like, he could have started laughing a little bit at Azet being so upset. It's like, oh, I didn't realize so much hatred. But, as he did point out, he didn't want to laugh at her. But I could see the character, if the moment were a little different, just chuckling a little bit at her, like, what are you talking about? It's not that big a deal. Nothing they said or did isn't what I would expect. Isn't what you should have expected. Come on. It's like this was gonna happen. And as I said in the previous video, think about where it happened. It happened with us at the table. That's never been a situation before. This is still progress. Okay, so hang on, where is this? Oh, okay, yeah. It's just a little odd because we a half hour before Kirk received the summons, we don't get a dinkus for this. But Azet has returned to her quarters, and now Curlew comes to see her, and he's still a little drunk. It's not so bad, but okay. He caught her wrist, lifted her palm to his face, drew in her scent. Azet Zeta, I had to see you. The words came swiftly, urgently from his lips. I can wait no longer. Let us take the oath. And she is basically can't do it. And she is too loyal to her father still. There's so much other stuff going on. The fact Curlew's also a little drunk isn't helpful. She's also still just very upset. She's still very concerned. And to Curlew's credit, he actually, when she's like, you need to go now, and goes over to the door and standing next to her for him to walk by, he does come up, but stops next to her to talk. And I didn't actually highlight this, but it is still pretty cool. Um, yeah. He's paused beside her and spoke with a gentleness she had not heard in him before. This anger is not meant for me. Something troubles you. Taken aback, she raised a hand to her throat. They stared at each other a time before she said, I spoke with my father today. He listened, waiting. We talked of the future. I fear for it. She lowered her voice to a whisper. I fear for his life, Curler. Or Curler. La. I always hear it as Curler in the movie, but anyhow. Your father is well protected. Were he not, he would not be alive now. You saw the hatred aboard the Enterprise. There are many who do not want him to reach the conference, who wish him dead. Curler straightened. So long as I am able, I will protect him within life, as I swear to protect you, Zeta. And at this point, now when he catches her wrist again, gently, she does not resist, and just, yeah. So it is, they do have that nice tender moment there, and I do definitely appreciate it, because it even describes in there, I don't remember if it was in the part where I read it necessarily, that she is actually surprised, and he is as well, the gentleness that he speaks with there, because it is not his normal character, but this also, it's like, I can see these two working out. It does make sense, and that is written as though, yes, they do have a history together, that even though it surprises her, his behavior there, it still is like, this makes sense. At least the way I can read it there is, this makes sense, that he would be so tender towards her, Klingon or not. We cut back to the Enterprise, because now he's come up to the bridge, and Valeris, seeing him come up, actually gets up and goes down to be at the helm instead of in the center seat, because she would, yeah, that actually doesn't make sense. So she does that when Kirk arrives. The thing is, Spock is first officer and also a captain. He's on the bridge as well. So if it is she's stepping away because, well, person who should be, who is supposed to take the center seat is, here. So go. Spock would be ahead of her as well. So I don't know. Maybe that is just more of a Navy tradition where even if you are the officer in command, when the captain, specifically the captain of the ship comes, you free the seat for him. But you don't necessarily do that for the first officer. Don't know. Or maybe, I guess Spock could just said, nah, I'm here doing other things. But still, Spock is like, we got the neutron surge. It's like, and it even describes that Kirk gets up and is like, what do you need, Spock? There's a neutron surge. And it's like, okay, I'm sober now. Because he immediately recognizes that's not good. And it just gives two different possibilities. The first, that there had been a breach in the matter-antimatter reactor unit with catastrophic results. The second, that the ship's photon torpedoes had been armed and brought to bear on a target. Now, this is interesting for two reasons. One is a technical thing that's like, that shouldn't be happening. So I got a problem with that. But the other, that's more interesting, is it is suggesting that the Enterprise perhaps does fire the two photon torpedoes that do hit Kronos 1. That they have been armed and brought to bear. So it's like, maybe like somebody is doing it at some auxiliary control system. Don't know. So it's setting that up, but so that way I'm good with it. I'm good with it. But I do have the technical complaint though, that the photon torpedoes, when armed, what the hell are they doing that produce a neutron surge, a neutron radiation surge? And I get that the photon torpedoes have an antimatter warhead in it, well, matter-antimatter warhead, but it's not doing anything. It's not until it detonates that anything's going to happen. So, is there another power source? I mean, I guess there could be another power source. It does have a computer system on there because they are able to track around. So, yeah, but that should be more like a battery type system. Capacitor type system. That shouldn't be a power generation system that would release any kind of radiation. So I don't understand that. Yeah, I just... Plus, it's supposed to be a large neutron surge. It's... Yeah. See, I don't... I'm technical enough, I don't want to suspend my disbelief on that. But I will grant that the value of doing this to suggest that they could be the ones that it could be Enterprise firing the torpedoes itself. It's not being fired by the cloaked bird of prey underneath them. I do see that value is potentially greater than the technical error. But technical details matter to me. So it's just, yeah, okay, so we stick on the Enterprise for a little bit longer. We see both shots, and it does describe them as just appearing at the bottom of the view screen. They're all like, what the heck is going on here? And Kirk like has to force himself to watch, because it's like, I have to see, even though it does like blind him, which, I mean, that seems unnecessary, but it still is like Kirk has to see, say, what is going on kind of thing. Yep. One thing curious that I do want to mention, he straightened up at Spock, straightened up, face the captain. Jim, they never even raised their shields. And this is when Kirk finally closes his eyes after the second hit, and the hull had been breached. But they'd never even raised their shields. That I find curious, because one thing that by and large seemed to be the case in Star Trek is a single photon torpedo can in fact destroy a ship if it strikes it with the shields down. Like, that by and large seemed to be thinking it. But it's also that's potentially out of, just since right there, things like Bunsan Run Deep and other World War II naval movies where like a single torpedo can destroy a ship, and that's not accurate. If it's placed right, yes. But that's not often the case. So it is just kind of funny but it is also, the photon torpedoes are supposed to have variable warheads. I saw something so many weeks ago talking about the different weapons that you see in Star Trek and Star Wars, and the photon torpedo is freaky powerful. It would, because it not only has I think I looked it up back for the motion picture, a kilogram of antimatter on there. That's a lot. That's a hell of a lot of energy there. Because I even made the point in that when they were talking about the, 12th power for V'ger's cloud thing. There we go. And it's like, I just quickly did the math. If a photon torpedo has 1 kilogram, that's like 16th power, like 10 to the power 16. So it's actually more powerful. What are you talking about? But it's still, even with it being a kilogram, they do have some way of varying that, which I'm not sure how you can do that. I understand how you can do that with a thermonuclear warhead. That I understand, because you can control how much of the fusion material is in where it needs to be for it to actually be triggered, undergo nuclear fusion. Stuff that would be elsewhere is less likely to go off. That I can get, but I'm not sure a photon torpedo would do it. But it's also the fact that they have such tracking capability that they are. Stepping back a little bit to put it a little differently, when you get into some of the nitty gritty of like various details and such, Star Trek is far more devastatingly powerful than Star Wars. Like, even the Death Star technically doesn't come up against various ships in Star Trek. Because, I mean, even in the original pilot for Star Trek, they do reference that they can beam the power of the ship down to the phaser thing that they put on the planet, and that is the power to destroy a planet. That they can beam that power down to something and can just eradicate a planet with that. And also, even in Final Frontier, there's a reference to a bird of prey could destroy a planet. Now, that might have been more metaphorical, so could the other, but it's like, technically there are statements in Star Trek that even the Death Star is in fact dwarfed by starships, and original series level starships. So once you get into TNG and later, there's no competition. Alright, okay, so now we cut to Kronos 1 prior to it getting hit. And there was even a mention that Gorkon was in his quarters reading, and in about an hour he would have a meeting with his advisors. It's also funny because it had a little bit in there as it comes in. It's like, where are your guards? And he's just like, not here. Well, no, I think he says gone. But it's because it's like they were drunk. They weren't really useful, so like they're just off doing something else. I'm trusting my security devices at the moment. Don't worry about it. And she's like, "We need to worry about it, Dad." Anyway, so now he's having this meeting. The three who argued now, General Cord and Brigadiers Curler and Kamereg. I don't recall meeting Kamerg. Well, Kamerg. Sorry, Kamerg. But yeah, I don't remember meeting him before. And this is Cord from Final Frontier. These three were the most useful to him, for they rarely agreed, which meant Gorkon heard three very different viewpoints on virtually every issue. And somewhere in here, there's a point made, I don't remember if I highlighted it or not, that basically with these three going at it, it's like, what happened at the dinner was exchanging pleasantries compared to this. I don't know why Cord didn't go with them, by the way. I mean, I guess it could be... Okay, there is one reason why even Gorkon could be like, you can't come along. But I know these people. That's why you can't come along. I don't want their focus to be on you because they are familiar with you and you being the bridge. Excuse me. I need them dealing with me, not you as a bridge. And you're going to be favorable with them as well because it's like, you know them, they know you. Don't want that the benefit of your relationship here. I need it. I need to be exposed to them and them exposed to me. But yeah, he starts mentioning that Chang and Azabur are both also advisors for him, but they are not there because, well, his daughter is fiercely loyal to him, so it's like, I mean, what are you going to tell me? And Chang, like Gorkon, listened much and said little. It was also mentioned at one point, I don't remember where, that Chang basically never says anything until he's politically tested it. So he never shares his opinion until he knows it's the right opinion to share. But we also have this. Gorkon had enough of a healthy mistrust of Chang not to want him to know too much. Alright, yeah, I'm just going to read, I didn't highlight it, but how can we, this is Curler talking, how can we hold our heads up after the humans have so insulted us? Chancellor, did you not hear the things the captain allowed his underlings to say? Did you not hear what the soldiers in the hall said when we entered the lift? They despise us. I've heard their jokes, but for the sake of decency, we'll now repeat them here. I like that line, because it is just so inflammatory. They refer to us as simians, the speechless primates they evolved from. They think of us as unintelligent creatures without feelings or thought. But yeah, that whole, but for the sake of decency, we'll not repeat them here. It's like, no, I would be the asshole to be like, actually, no, repeat them. What? I want you to say them. So, but it's indecent. It's like, you're saying it's indecent. You're just making them that by saying it. It's like, what did they say? It's like, and you know, the whole thing, like, you know, we all look alike. It's like, they kind of look alike to me. What was the other one? Wouldn't want to share a glass with them. It's like, that is unfortunate. But then, what would we drink? I mean, it's like, you can disarm many of those. And that's not to suggest they were not stated as insults. They were. But it's still, Gorkon could do something, or just a character could do something like that to counter Curler and just saying that you are exaggerating this to make your point, which you are free to do. But you do need to understand that that is what you're doing, and I need to be able to recognize that and call it out. Yeah, we get some with Cord here as well, who's basically like, well, he's even describing here that he is old enough, he's seen enough killing, done enough of it himself, but also he's lost enough family where it's like he wants peace, but he's still a Klingon. There's also, he understands, is this what I highlight next? Yes. Where did they actually put it? I want to read, if I can't find it, here it is. Capable of extending his thoughts beyond the barriers of his own culture. For Cord, and we do get a line here where it's like, yeah, that's what he's doing. Do we not have 1,000 insulting names for humans? Do we not hate them as much as they hate us? despise them for their weaknesses even as they despise us for our strengths. Such feelings extend both ways. Try to understand. Their culture abhors war. They see no glory in dying in battle, only waste. They fight only when it is necessary to defend themselves, and even then the Vulcans will not fight. Therefore, they see those who have died at our hands as victims, and us as murderers. I will also point out that some aspects, at least modern day, not entirely true, or historically not entirely true. It's like the whole abhors war and sees no glory in dying in battle. It's only waste. It's like there's context there. That it certainly battle losses are bad, a terrible thing. We all know that, but there can still be that honorable death concept that you do see in many cultures on Earth. So, like to use the obvious example of D-Day, there are plenty of people that died that day that they understood that their deaths was still helping achieve victory, and so would accept it. And as horrible as it is, there's still a kind of glory there. Glory isn't the right word. Honor there, I think, is how we would more so see it. But definitely the see no glory in dying battle. It's like, okay, yeah. Depending on how you want to interpret glory, no, that is true. We don't. But there can still be an honor there, and that is not a waste. So. But that's also modern day and historical humans, not Star Trek, which I don't know. I'm just trying to think. Is there other? Well, yeah, because I mean, Peter and Spock's deaths in Wrath of Khan, there is an honor there. Those weren't wasted lives. For the actual event, well, not the actual event, for the written way that David died, that was not a waste. In Search for Spock. So, I mean, it's, I mean, Cord's point, however, is still very accurate for trying to argue against Curler. That you need to understand this is their view there. And that the things you're upset by with them, we're guilty of as well. And they do see things just so different from us. You need to understand that. But then there's this, because Curler he's military. He is military. He does see it that way. But we get this. Curler faced Gorkon. Chancellor, I believe if we forge an alliance with the Romulans, we can defeat the Federation, then claim the resources for ourselves. There is still time. I see. Gorkon replied slowly. Tell me, did Chang discuss this with you? This was like... Gorkon knows how to slap somebody down. Because that is... It's subtle, but is very much a slap to Curler's face. Because just the whole, you're being Chang's puppet here. Because he knows that's what Chang wants. But Curler doing it. And Curler's like... Curler's eyes blazed. I act on no one's behalf but my own. He stiffened to attention. With your permission, Chancellor. So he leaves because he knows that is an insult. But it is just so... It's a very good one. Because it does cut to Curler. Because it might be that Gorkon is right. That Curler had been listening to Chang and been swayed. And even if Curler does still believe this, and maybe he doesn't. Well, maybe he does, but he's still regurgitating what Chang told him. He might have to leave, he might have to leave to save face, but also leave to be like, okay, is this truly what I do believe? I'm trying to remember if it's here or if it's elsewhere. But there is a mention they did find curious, which, well, okay, no, it makes sense, though, because it should be noted that of the 6 original cast films, this is the only one that was actually during the run of TNG. So the relationship between the Klingons and Romulans is very different there than what we've been seeing in the books. In that, they are enemies. And, yeah, So Cord talking. The Romulans don't like us any better than the humans do. Curler counters. At least they understand what a warrior's honor means. In TNG, the Klingons are very consistent saying, well, except for Duras, that Romulans have no honor. Now, partly that could be because of the Khitomer massacre, where the Romulans attacked a peace conference between the Federation and Klingons and slaughtered a whole bunch of Klingons. Might in part be from that. But it always seemed odd that the treaty between them. But it's like, well, okay, I can see it as the Klingons and Romulans just know that from their perspectives, the Federation is a common enemy to them, so they'd rather work together enough to make sure that the Federation won't try to attack either, because that would provoke the other of them. But this Gorkin is basically saying that, yeah, they don't really like us any better. Oh, and also, even if we allied ourselves with the Romulans, we can never defeat the Federation. That's actually very interesting, because the Romulans are a weird species. Because I want to say we don't know nearly as much about them, but the Klingons, it seemed... technologically, I feel like you could say they were always inferior to the Federation, always inferior to Starfleet. But they could mount a fleet, a larger fleet, faster than the Federation. Like a starship is worth like 3 Klingon ships, but the Klingons have like 6 to a starship. So it's something like that. With Starfleet has better ships, but the Klingons might have just more of them. That always kind of felt like it, but definitely when you get into like TNG, the Romulan ships are like at parity with the Starfleet ships. So it is interesting to see this point out here. But it's also, I don't know, because you really don't see any Romulan ships before TNG except for the few that come up in the original series. So, and this is a couple decades after that or so. So what are they at? I don't know. Not depicted. Anyway, okay, so we do get, as in this continues on with Gorkon, Cord, Curler, and by the way, there's also security guards. And Gorkon's even reflecting on, because like there are those who agree with Curler and Chang, and he's like, they don't like me, and he's like, I can't say the things I'd like to say because it's possible my own security, one of them could be a spy. So it's like, can't say things I want to say. But as it continues, they are in there when the ship gets hit. Gravity generates someone called behind him because gravity gets knocked out. Enterprise, Camera roared in helpless fury. Not Enterprise, Gorkin whispered. He knew Spock and trusted him utterly, more than he trusted his own people. And he had instinctively liked and trusted James Kirk. Kirk had good reason to hate, but, Curler's words notwithstanding, he was a human who understood a warrior's honor, even if he did not understand killing. Kirk would perform his duty well despite personal feelings. Kirk was not behind this. I'm just trying to check where it is. Yeah, that when the assassins are there, he wanted to tell them their deception would not work. He knew they had not come from the Enterprise. Which actually, I don't know. Because that is one, in the movie, the indication is that they did. But I mean, this could be a red herring. And it could also just be I know you're not from the Enterprise officially kind of thing. So there's that element too. But the last highlight I have here is the men in Starfleet uniforms fired on the guards. Not standard fleet issue phasers, Gorkon saw, but burning phasers illegal in the Federation. Capable of inflicting far more damage, far more pain. Capable of searing through flesh and bone. That's very interesting to me. It's just because we're getting these little pieces of evidence, and it's like that is one thing that never. I mean, how do you even capture that in the movie? To be fair, but it's still that is interesting. That's an interesting piece of evidence there because that would help to indicate that it wasn't Starfleet. But then it's also, if it is Burke and Samno, where did they get the phasers? I mean, even if, in theory, it could be that they stole that they were given phasers because, if you took any out of, off the Enterprise, that then they would know. It could be something like that, but they also would have had phasers issued to them. Which reminds me one thing going back, Curler saying, "Did you hear what the soldiers said in the hallways?" It's like, that's also something Cord could have pointed out. They're not soldiers. What do you mean? They're not soldiers. They're crewmen. That they're not there as soldiers. They're just there servicing the ship. As in one of those cultural differences things. I mean, that's not excusing their behavior or anything or what they said, but just that is that would be a significant cultural difference between these two cultures, between these two species. So yeah, that's it. It is an interesting. Oh, hang on. Just realized I needed to check on that. There was no time. One of the men fired, so he couldn't tell them, "I know you're not from Enterprise." Gorkon shuddered at the fiery agony that consumed him from chest to abdomen, but did not permit himself to cry out. Instead, he sighed and thought of Azet Burr before surrendering to darkness. So, is that the cliche that I despise? I want to say no, because even we know one of two things. He's either dead or he's unconscious. In the movie, it is, because I have to go by the movie for now, because I haven't read further in the book yet. In the movie, he is unconscious. They are able to revive him a little bit. Well, Bones works on him, revive him more fully, and then we get the whole "don't let it end this way," which may or may not be how we get it here. Because we do not have a fine chain line in here, which is, it's not necessary in the book because it's stated he's not there. But in the movie, it helps set up that, wait, he's not in the room. Where is he? What's he doing? Ooh. So yeah, it's. I got a little distracted now. Oh yeah. So we're not there yet with him being revived. So or resuscitated even just only briefly. So I'm not gonna hold it against it here. Man, I wish I could remember. No, it couldn't have been Final Frontier because no one dies in that. Such it would be like that. Voyage Home, is anyone that dies in that? I can't. No, okay, yes, it is in Voyage Home because of the whole Sarek getting impaled by glass. And it's like, the whole his eyes saw no more. Wait, and then it's like, oh no, he's fine, he's awake. Hate that. But this I feel contextually is more appropriate because at minimum he's unconscious. Sarek wasn't even that. I hate that cliche. I really hate that cliche. Like I said, if I ever do that in a book, it means the guy's dead, or I guess maybe I'll allow unconscious, but likely to die. Alright, this is actually a relatively short one compared to some of the others. So next up will be Chapter 5, which I assume is going to have Kirk's surrender. Well, it'll have to have that much. They're going over, doing what they can, Chang being on the ship again, likely. And them being arrested. I'm not sure. It might end with the playback. We did fire, but it's nope. We gotta check stuff. Check the computer records and all that to show that isn't there. And that is, by the way, one thing that the last time I watched Star Trek 6, it has been a while, like a year or two, and I'm gonna watch the director's cut when I finish with this. Is that in those first few moments, the computer readout does say that they did not fire. It's actually first stated a little later. Oh wait, no. No. Before Kirk beams over, Spock does say that, according to the records we did, that's right. But Scotty is asked what's going on, and he's like, we're still fully loaded, meaning that they haven't been fired. So the inventory hasn't been altered yet there, even though there's a computer log of firing. So it will be interesting to see how that goes in here. One thing, by the way, that is in the director's cut of Star Trek VI, a bit, I think maybe the order to do the visual count is in there, but some of the other stuff associated with that, because Scotty goes through and counts every torpedo and confirms they didn't fire any. So, yeah, it's next chapters should be interesting, and it could also be significant as far as enough stuff is going to be going on, enough wheels that have to turn for it. It'll be a good one to judge if Dillard is doing as good a job as I want him to do. And he is doing a good job. He is legitimately doing a good job thus far. But next chapter, it's going to be an important one. I'm just thinking, probably the next important one, as far as the conspiracy stuff goes, will be, I think, towards the end when Valeris is exposed. I think that's going to be the next one. But I don't know. But that at least for the events I know for the movie, that's probably the next time that we would have a major thing about all the conspiracy stuff going on. The stuff in between is still going to be still very important, but I think the conspiracy will be a little bit more slow burn at that point. But we'll see. We shall see. We shall see. Anyway, I'm glad I'm enjoying this so far. Please let me keep enjoying it. All right. See you next time.